Hello, this video goes through how to use the rules wizard in order to figure out which forms you need for science fair. This is one of the things that you'll have to include as you submit your paperwork for me for the first round. This allows me to see if you've included all of the required forms or not. So the way this works is it's basically like a simple dichotomous key that you go through answering questions based on your project, and it'll then spit back which forms you need in the end. So for this particular scenario, let's pretend that you wanted to grow plants. So you're going to grow, say, some corn plants, and you're going to grow them in soil with increasing levels of acidity. So in order to accomplish that, you'll be adding some very dilute hydrochloric acid to some of your soil samples. Right, so using that scenario, we'll go through and talk about how to fill out the rules wizard form. So it says, will your experiment include any of the following? Vertebrate animals, human participants, recombinant DNA, microorganisms, humans, or animal tissues? Nope, since we're working with plants, I can go with none of the above. If you're working with any of those things, you can certainly check the appropriate one. The nice thing about these is it'll allow you to click on them. So if you're not sure whether or not your project involves some of these things, you can certainly go through and get some more information, right, by clicking on those included links there. But for me, for my project scenario, it would be none of the above. So I would go to the next page. So it says, will your experiment be conducted in one of the following sites? College or university, you're going to do it in a medical facility, home, school, other. Also, if your project is a continuation, there's extra forms you need. So it's a good thing typically to be expanding upon your research and doing a continuation project. It does just require a little bit of extra paperwork. So we'll say that the project is not a continuation, but I am going to be working at a college or university. So maybe I have a contact at Cedar Crest. I'll be doing this research project there as part of their botany program. So going to the next page, it says, will your proposed experiment include any of the following? So it has to do with like non-intrusive behaviors or studies with vertebrate animals. Nope, I'm dealing with plants. Tissues obtained from animals. No, there's no animal component to the project whatsoever. Not to totally dissuade you from this, but typically like animal projects are very, very difficult to run. If you're interested in that, we certainly can have a conversation about it, but I generally dissuade students from doing that. One of the downsides to those projects is Lehigh Valley Science Fair has been very clear that if you have an animal die during your research, that your project is basically like your project's not open for submission to Lehigh Valley Science Fair. And that could happen for reasons beyond your control in the experiment. So I usually dissuade students from those. But if you are trying to do something with vertebrate animals, certainly check the appropriate ones there, and we could talk about that and sort of have like an extra conversation about those things. But we're not doing anything that involves human subjects with my particular experiment. But if you were, a lot of people do things with surveys or questionnaires, right? You check the appropriate boxes there, or maybe something with exercise. So you check whatever's appropriate. For me, it would be none for our particular project. Here, I'm not dealing with people, so I don't have to worry about going through and talking about people with different demographic groups. My project involves a pre-existing human data. I said no, because this is not a continuation project. And if yes, how would you identify these? Well, you don't have to do that if you're saying no up above there. So now here we go. It has to do with substances. So if you're using some kind of DEA controlled substance, such as a prescription drug or something like that, you need to go through and check those off on here. So we are using chemicals in our experiment, because I said we're going to add some relatively dilute hydrochloric acid to the plants, but that's the only thing on this list that would apply to my scenario. For many of you, if you're using any chemicals, you just have to check that box. It's a common thing. It's not a problem. It just involves one additional form. Typically, it's not much of an issue. Potentially hazardous biological agents. You can certainly do things with bacteria or viruses or DNA. You just have to mark it on here. For my particular scenario that I gave you, we're not doing anything with these. I know it's quite common for people to do projects with protists or other microorganisms, so you can certainly do that. Just make sure you check the appropriate box. So this one then spits back the rules wizard summary, which you have to go through and include this as part of your project. So it says these documents require Adobe Acrobat Reader. You can actually get the forms like right off of here if you want to, but it shows the appropriate forms that you need. So you need the adult sponsor form, the Form 1, the 1A, and the 1B. Everybody gets these back, right? These are 3 forms that are required no matter what you're doing. There will be individual videos on how to go through and complete those forms. You need the official abstract form. This is another one that everybody needs to complete. So it depends on the fair, but I always tell people it's best to complete this one. If you don't do this and then you move on, it can give you like something else to worry about, especially if you're moving on to Del Val. So this one I would need a 1C. A 1C is a regulated research institute form. So I said, I'd be completing this one at a college. So there's just one additional form to fill out for that. And then I need a Form 3, a risk assessment form, because this particular project ends up going through and requiring the chemicals. So that's something that I would need to fill out for this. So all you have to do once you get here is just take a screenshot of this page, and you have to submit this with your project. So that way I know when I'm going through your project, I should expect to see the 3 required forms, which I'll see from everybody, but I should also see for this particular project a 1C and a Form 3. These honestly are the 2 most common additional forms that people need. I would say 75% or more of the projects typically require one of those 2 forms. So if you just take a screenshot of this, a simple way to do that is if you choose to print the page, and then instead of sending it to the printer, you can just choose to save it as a PDF. So if you just save your screen that way and submit this as one of the things that you need when you're submitting your project. So I'm going to use this to make sure that you've submitted all of the appropriate forms. So thank you for taking the time to watch. I appreciate it very much, and I will answer any questions that you have.